welcome everybody to this table talk. I have a very special guest with me today. So I have Frank Clifford from the London School of Astrology. Frank is an OG in the astrological community, I can tell you. I am super excited and very honored to have him be a part of this. As you can probably tell from the title of the video, we are going to be talking about fate and free will and how astrology can enhance your life. Frank, please introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and we'll get straight into it.
Oh, thank you, Rafa. My name's Frank Clifford. As you've said, I run the LSA. I've been an astrologer for 35 years this year. I started off at the age of 16, and I write, lecture, teach, consult, all the things you have to do to make a living as an astrologer. We were saying before we started how versatile you need to be. You need to think about all sorts of ways of doing what you love to avoid the idea of having to do a real job. I mean, it sounds a bit over the top, but it feels like a blessing to do something you truly love to do when you know and you see people every day who aren't doing that. And something about vocation, and that's probably a different topic for another time, is you don't have to do what you love for a living, but you have to do what you love sometime during the week. You know, you may not be able to earn your living doing what you love, whether you might be an amateur singer or amateur actor or painter, but doing something you love makes such a difference. And you and I are really blessed to be able to be earning a living, working at doing what we do. And so I'm super blessed. I should put on my forehead.
Hashtag blessed. I love it. Yeah, that's you know, it's a really awesome point that you raise, and it's so true. It really is a privilege to do what you love to do and what feels good to you every single day. You know, so true. I just want to go back to something. Frank is totally downplaying how awesome he really is and how much knowledge and skill he has. He's written many books on astrology, countless articles as well, especially for the Mountain Astrologer. He's, as he said, has been doing this for 35 years. And what many of you probably don't know is that Frank and the LSA was my first ever formal astrological training. So I'm very proud to be an alum of the school. For those of you that are thinking about taking any form of course, the LSA can absolutely help you, and we'll talk about all of that after. But I just wanted to put that in there because you were a really big part of me really starting to formalize the idea that actually this is where I really want to go with this, and this is where I want to kind of incorporate this into my work. So truly very grateful. And again, what you said, like doing what you love, what you enjoy, and being able to incorporate that into your everyday life is so exciting and awe-inspiring. I see so many people that say, you know, like, well, there's no way to make a living out of that. I can assure all of you, you know, us as astrologers and tarot readers and numerologists, we all had those thoughts at some point. Well, you know, I love to do it and it's what I really feel like I want to do. Not sure I can make money from it. You absolutely can turn those things into a passion, but just like Frank said, I think if you can find a way to incorporate it into your life so that you're at least getting a taster of that, it really makes everything else so much more bearable, I think, right?
Yeah, it's I think it's important. We all have a craving, and I think that's something about the fate and free will we're going to talk about. Is that there's an energy inside all of us that needs to be fulfilled. There are needs inside of us that need to be fulfilled. And it doesn't really matter what you use to fulfill them, but as long as you recognize or discover that need. Now, one of the things I get asked a lot is there a particular chart for an astrologer or a tarot reader? And there isn't. You know, everybody you see has their own motivation, their own style, their own background. And so there's no one chart or half a dozen charts that represent what an astrologer should be, you know, or a tarot reader. But everybody's hopefully using astrology or tarot or whatever they use to express themselves. That's the key. It doesn't matter what you use, whether you read hands like I do as well, or you read irises or feet. I've got a Virgo moon. I wouldn't read feet. There's no You're going to get me near people's feet because people just about keep their hands nice, but their feet, they let all sorts of disgusting things go on. So I couldn't read feet, but I read hands. But whatever you do, whatever it is, it's a tool. I always say astrology isn't really a vocation. The need to communicate or teach or to inspire is the vocation. And then we find a tool to be able to use that and express that. So whatever your tool is, whatever it is, use it to express who you are, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. It's brilliant. And it's so true. Whatever your medium is, you really are just kind of, we play the role of intermediary, or as I like to say, cosmic signpost holder. To say to people, you're going that way and you need to take a left at the end. That's why people come to us, right? And how you do that is so true. Some people are more theatrical, myself. Some people are a bit more a bit more subdued, but ultimately your entire experience and life experience will go into the type of astrologer or tarot reader or numerologist, etc., that you are and you become. So guys, we are offering here a 3-part series that's going to be exploring how to actually use astrology to enhance your life. What we're starting here with today is a broader picture of fate and free will. So the question really becomes, what is fate? How does it work? And one of the things that I often kind of say to people or try to get across to them is, it's not fate versus free will. It's fate and free will. These two things work in tandem. And I think that really takes a lot of pressure off a lot of people to buy into this idea, because a lot of people truly don't like the idea that they're not in control of their own lives. And I think it's important that we empower people to remind them, actually, you do have agency. You always have a choice. You can always go in any direction that you choose. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think about fate, free will, and astrology?
Okay, well, that's a super big question, isn't it? I would say there are different types of fate, aren't there? Like your DNA is your fate. Yes. Your family history of illness, of particular susceptibility to things, has a fatedness about it too. You may be in a location where you get far better treatment and you don't end up having that. Or the DNA has a propensity for one thing and you decide to take that somewhere else because of where you are. So yes, it's big, because I think what we forget with astrology particularly, and tarot is different. Tarot is a sort of dip insight as well, but with the chart, it's a fated moment. It's a moment of time that you could say we've chosen it. I don't know whether we have or not. It's no big deal to me whether we've chosen it, but we've got it. As soon as we're born, we've got a birth chart. We've got a moment of time. And that is fated to have particular transit, which we'll do in the next interview. So if you're born with 28 degrees Capricorn on the ascendant, then you're fated this year to have Pluto cross it. Whatever age you are, you might be long dead, buried, and off, in a new life somewhere. I don't know. Or looking down and thinking, I'm pleased I'm not having Pluto on my ascendant. So that's the fatedness of it, in the sense that once you've got a birth chart, there will be things that get triggered at particular times in your life. But the free will comes in literally, partly because we are born into a family with friends and extended family, perhaps. They've all got their birth charts. Now, we might be born at the exact precise moment in the same hospital as somebody else and go off and do our own thing in our different lives. And we've got different parents with different charts. We have different financial opportunities. We've got, we may be of different genders, all sorts of things. 101 different things affect how you get on in the world. We know it.
Yeah.
You know, your religion, the color of your skin, who you love, etc.
Sexuality. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, your chart is there, but whether that whether you navigate that in one direction or another depends on the people you encounter, depends on who you're born into, when you're born into it as well. So that's one thing that we don't tend to hear a lot about in astrology. It tends to be, well, they were a murderer because they had this and this in their chart. No, you know, they were a murderer because they chose to go down that route and commit murder at some point. You know, there isn't a murderer's chart. I've just written for TMA, Mountain Astrologer, the astrology of serial killers, which I wrote years ago in a book I did called Getting to the Heart of Your Chart. But I revised it for the article for the magazine and had a look at it. And I was really trying to say it's about choice. And yes, there are people, we know the stories of people like Tina Turner. Yes. They grow up, there's violence, there's abuse around them. She gets abandoned by both parents. She gets really disciplined and abused by her grandmother, not really loved all the way through her life. And then she marries somebody who does the same level of abuse. This is, you know, her chart doesn't say all of that, but in hindsight, you can see what she gravitated towards. You can see her life unfold in hindsight. Yeah. But there's something else. I always think we're a little bit bigger than our charts. The chart is there, and it's with insight, we can grow with it, grow into it, we can expand, we can develop it. But if we stay narrow, oh, I've got a detrimented Venus, or I've got somebody told me I've got my sun in the 6th house and that's crap, or whatever it may be. We know we're going to get onto this, I'm sure. But if you stay with a narrow set of viewpoints about you, your life, your chart, the people around you, the potential that you have, if that's narrow, your life will be narrow. You know, your life is what you expect it to be, and it becomes what you anticipate it to be as well. Absolutely. And I think this is the problem people have, and we do have there is a corner of astrology. Often people, they actually don't read charts, but they've got this sort of, well, this means this, and no, you won't be successful in that. Well, I'll show you 10 people who have used a so-called difficult placement to something pretty remarkable, because either they've had the opportunity, or they've changed it, or they've said, actually, I'm bigger than that, or I don't believe that narrow point of view. Yes. A lot of the clients that I see who are very successful, financially, commercially, whatever it may be, or just very successful as people who run homes and families and have a tremendous amount of contentment in their lives, they're doing their charts without even realizing it often. And you're talking to people who are a living embodiment of the very best parts of themselves. And that's what we want to do with astrology, with tarot, with palmistry, is to encourage that, to get people to recognize the dark, the shadow, as well as the light, and but to get them hopefully becoming who they were born to be, instead of somebody else's narrow version of what they should be because they're an Aquarian, or because they've got Cancer on the ascendant, or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Oh, wow. God, so many things there that just... I don't know about anybody else, but currently I feel like I could run a marathon after that. Thank you very much. I feel like really pepped up and inspired. It was really cool to see some of the reframes. And the reason I asked you that is because I'm going to take us on a little bit of a foray now. Going to kind of go off the deep end with a little bit of the woo-woo, so stay with me. And you guys out there, you already know how I can be, so hopefully this will make sense as well. So one thing that I often encourage people to talk about or to consider is that we, you know, when you mentioned right at the beginning about the choice in a chart, and the choices that we make, is such an important thing to remind people. So if we can zoom out for a moment, the way that I see it is we actually had more of a hand in the life that we got, or the life that we've chosen, than maybe a lot of people can accept at the moment, because it's not really a common school of thought. And so when I say zoom out, I say to people, consider that you are a soul in a body, right? So you zoom right out, and wherever you are in that, you made a soul conscious decision to say, I need to experience a set of experiences in order to perfect my soul, or to go on to what I believe is going to be the next level. Now, I often encourage people, and I say to them, when you think about the life that you've had, and you look at your family, your friends, the people that you were born to, or the family that you have surrounding you, look at all of them and ask it. And this isn't to say that anybody's superior or inferior to anybody else, but when you look at them, you ask the question, would anybody else have been able to handle, deal with, and overcome the circumstances or the challenges, or even enhance the blessings that I've been given in my life? And when you look around your circle and you really look at them and say, actually, you're brilliant at this, but you know what? This thing that I had to deal with, I know your personality or your mentality wouldn't have been able to overcome that. So you take that on board as part of your journey, as part of your soul evolution. Now, you know, whether you do or don't buy into that idea or not, it's something that I feel for myself, and it's brought me a lot of comfort, and it's really helped me explain and reframe a lot of the challenges that I've overcome on a personal level. The ideas of soul family and, you know, all of us being a cog in the grand design, etc., you know, healing familial lineage, stuff like that is all attached to this idea. And those are whole other tangents, I'm sure, that astrology would both enhance and debunk simultaneously. I always say this to people, consider that you have more free will and more agency and personal power than you have been led to believe, or that maybe you can even accept at this moment in time. And, you know, the Carl Jung quote where he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate, right? It's a really provocative and loaded sort of word when we talk about fate. And, you know, you raised some really brilliant points. Choice always comes into this, and I'm going to unpack that a little more in just a moment. But like fate and the idea that the events in our lives are predetermined, I think rubs people the wrong way, because then it almost like offends the idea, well, you know, we're not in control then. You know, like if there are things that happen that are fated, then I'm not in control. My free will pales in comparison to that. And the sad part about that for me is, if you could zoom out just a little and say, well, actually, you chose many of the challenges that you've had because that's what you needed to unfold and blossom into who you kind of truly are. I love what you mentioned about the difficult aspects in successful people's charts, because I often say to people, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, this square is happening and it's, and I say to them, well, a square is actually an opportunity. It's something that pisses you off enough to say, you know what, bollocks to that, I'm not having this experience again, so I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to get proactive and get stuck in. And again, that comes from that choice, that decision to overcome whatever the challenge might be. So yes, it's being triggered. Yes, you're having that activation and you feel, you know, activated by it. But really, if you can take that and kind of say, well, somewhere along the line, I need this experience to get to my next goal, idea, endeavor, whatever it might be, that actually gives you, it reminds you of how much more in control you really are, how much agency you really have, and how much your personal power becomes more palpable when it's trained in the face of the challenges of life. What do you think, Frank?
Yes, I agree. I think instead of seeing the chart or whatever you're looking at as a problem, well, I guess that's the reason why I don't have money, or that's the reason why I'm never going to fall in love, or whatever you may have read online about a particular placement in your chart. My feeling is that everything in your chart, and maybe everything in life, is an invitation to participate. Ooh. Really, that's the key. You know, it's an invitation to be involved in some way. And I remember watching, I used to watch the Oprah Winfrey Show when it was on daily, all those years ago. And I remember I happened to meet Maya Angelou a long time ago when she was in London. And I remember her being on Oprah's show. I thought I'd drop that in. It's got nothing to do with it, but I just remember being in her presence and feeling, that's what a great lady. And I've written a lot about Maya Angelou over the years. And she said Oprah rang her one day, and some newspaper had said something terrible about her, and it was all lies and everything. And she was crying, and Maya interrupted her and said, "Say thank you." And Oprah said, "What? You're not listening to me. I'm telling you, the National Enquirer said this, whatever, trash me." And she said, "Thank you. Say thank you for the opportunity to know what it is you want, to know who you are, to know who you're not." And we get invitations like that every day to think, okay, not me. I don't like that. I don't want to behave like that. Yesterday, I'm here in Mexico at the moment, and this has got the fans very hot here. I'm very red, and try not to be on a beach. And I was watching a video yesterday of what they call angry Karens at airports and stuff like that. And part of me didn't want to watch it because I thought, oh no, I don't want to see people be the worst of themselves. But it's also compulsive, when you get onto YouTube and something pops up. And it was people behaving in a way that you think, oh God, we could all go there, because airplanes and airlines and delays can really get you to a point of, close to the thought of murder, But I was watching it, and I kept saying thank you, thank heavens I've never been recorded behaving like that, or ever behaved like that in a plane or whatever it may be. And we do. I mean, that's the choice, I think, of free will. However stressed you are, however difficult things you are that are happening to you are, the opportunity to say, okay, this is an invitation to know what it is that I want in life and who I am in life. And that's not me. Or this relationship does not bring out the best in me. We get tied up in relationships all the time, where if we ever step back and thought, is this making me happy? Am I the best person I can be in this relationship? What am I searching? Am I expecting something from someone instead of providing it for myself? All the questions that if we could just step back and make decisions to say, actually, I wish you well, I'm not going to be living with you anymore, or married to you, or working with you anymore. And it's not that idea, it's not about you, it's about me. And it really is. It's about you, but it's really what I don't want to be when I'm with you, for instance. So I think every day we get opportunities to see who it is that we are, and who we want to be and don't want to be.
Yeah, I love that, and so very true. And again, it all comes back to choice. Whatever your transits, whatever your cards, whatever your numbers, whatever your palms, whatever it is, you always have an active role in that. Brilliant, just really brilliant. So for me, many of my community know I've said this countless times in various different videos. It's not fate versus free will, it's fate and free will. And going back to that idea that we've chosen a lot of the experiences that we're having, we also have a choice to make them better moving forward. This feeds into this whole idea of karma, and nowadays it gets a really bad rap. And we hear that, well, what goes around comes around, and you'll get yours, and all of that kind of stuff. And often that comes from a place of pain, right? And usually a place of suffering and wanting to pass that on to another person. Whereas if you can take the personal out of it and say, okay, well, a set of experiences or decisions or choices led to certain experiences. And actually, if I made the choices that got me to this point, we can make choices to get out of it. So I love what you said there about relationships, because it's so true. So the way that I kind of see this is each one of us has a divine Satnav, right? So we're on our highway through life, and you've got landmarks, let's say, or places that you stop off on that journey. And each one of those, just like the major arcana in tarot, these are the big moments in life, the fated moments that we can't get round because it's a part of who we are. It's a part of what we're here to experience. And so each one of those stop-off points is a fated or a destined experience that we're going to have. Having children, getting married, buying a house, all of these are really big things that we experience as humans. It could be something as big as, you know what, my whole family have been lawyers for the last 5 generations. I'm going to be an artist. Do you see what I mean? Like, it can be anything on that path. And the way that we kind of, when you're on that journey of your grand Satnav through life, how you get to each one of those big landmark moments, all free will. Where you go from those moments, all free will. And so a lot of people, like when I say this, some people say to me, well, you know, if you're always going to end up at one of these big events, you know, is it really free will with all the choices that you're making? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Because if you can, again, zoom out for a minute and remember that you've chosen those big landmarks for the experience that you're going to have. And if you want to understand that more, your chart will help you do so, because it's going to show you, right, at this age, you're likely to be experiencing stuff like this. You know, these could be the themes, these could be the trends. And then, you know, it's like, I don't suppose to know the reasons behind the hard experiences that many people have in life, or even my own, but understanding it in that way, that I'm on a journey through life, a set of experiences, what I need to really evolve as a person and to become a better version of myself. And a lot of the choices that I make are really what's helping me create that person that I'm becoming. So astrology then comes into the picture, the language of the stars, the observation of patterns, cycles, correlations between the movements and the aspects of planets, and the life for us with the experiences. So, and what I love most about that, it's like it follows one of the Hermetic principles that as above, so below, right? So this whole idea that stuff happening in the sky is kind of giving us an idea of what's happening down here on the planet. But I often say to people, it's kind of like a grand sky clock. What's happening when? That gives you more of like an overview of how this kind of fits in some way. It's a way of really understanding what's happening for you at any given moment or period in your life, which is effectively a form of knowledge, right? And knowledge is food for consciousness, and that leads to understanding. So as I kind of see it, astrology really helps provide knowledge and wisdom and insight into the experience, you know, to experience life on a more even keel, and also to understand what's happening at any sort of given moment. So the way, as I was saying, the way that I kind of see this is we're all on a journey through life, right? And that is, it's almost like we have a grand sat nav. We're on a mission to the end, right? We all know where it finishes. We don't know what the final secret is after that. And I've always said that that's what I want my headstone to say, gone to learn the final secret. Just, you know, because there's obviously something beyond this, but you're on your life's highway and you're going through that sort of grand sat-nav journey. And on that journey, just like with the major arcana in tarot, you've got, you know, those represent like the bigger experiences of life when they show up. And it's the same thing with like the big events in our lives, whether it's having children, buying a house, getting married, you know, deciding that you're going to do something completely different or live half the world away from your family. These are all big fated moments that you're here to experience. How you get to those events and where you go after those events have taken place, that's where your free will is totally in play, right? You get to, and often people will argue that and they'll say, well, if you're always going to end up at these fated moments, then do you really have a choice? And I say, absolutely, of course you do. You make a million different choices every single day from, you know, I'm pretty sure that the grand design has more important things to do than decide for you whether you're going to have ketchup or barbecue sauce, right? Like you have so many different choices that you make in a day that are completely down to you. But those bigger things, remember what I said when I said, you know, to everybody at home, zoom out And remember that those bigger things that are happening in your life, somewhere your soul chose that because it knew that it wanted or needed that experience to become more of itself and bigger than itself. So I wanted to kind of ask you, what how do you see that? And you know, what are your thoughts and feelings on that and astrology?
I'm not 100% sure about the idea of stop-off points, whether we all have those or not. One of the things you mentioned a bit earlier, which is a bit of a digression, but I promise I'll come back, is I don't think there's a pass mark when we die. I don't think the idea of you know, I don't quite I believe in past lives. I believe in that we have many experiences, but I don't think there's a sense of, well, you did better last time, or you're getting higher this time, and you'll be on a higher plane next time, or that. I don't believe that. I just believe we're being invited to experience living, and the choices that we make, yeah, they have repercussions. We can do terrible things to people, as we know history shows us what people have done. I'm not sure whether there's a heaven and a hell to take care of that afterwards, personally speaking. What I think, though, is that the moment that we're living, we are given a choice with consciousness. Astrology, tarot, all of those subjects give us a level of self-awareness, consciousness to make better decisions, if you wish. But you can still take those subjects and use them badly, or use them in a way that becomes negative for people, or very narrow, as I said earlier. I often think of the chart as I said earlier, this fixed moment of time, this snapshot of who you were born to be. And it's like a magnet. You go into life with, it's not fated that you will have a particular a job or a particular set of behaviors or decisions that you make. You know, I don't think your chart tells you what you're going to be, because that's where the free will comes in. You know, it gives you the map. It tells you the terrain, the opportunities to explore. But you can go beyond that as well. I don't think it's, people often say, you know, it's a map of who you are. You can't go beyond that. You can't do more than that. I don't believe that for a moment. I think that's their own narrow frame of reference, trying to keep the chart as the sole reflection of who you are, when it's one reflection of who you are. Yeah. And so looking at a birth chart, it's like a magnet. It will attract people and experiences to get itself fulfilled. And what the chart really isn't a set of predetermined behaviors, experiences, people, jobs, all of that. What it is, it's a group of energies. And some of us have more of a solar energy. Some of us have chosen or born into a more lunar or mercurial energy, whatever it may be. And we will gravitate towards people and experiences that will help us fulfill that, negatively, positively, whatever it may be. So it's almost like that Satnav is pre-programmed, as you would say. I always call the palms like the Satnav as well. But if we think of it as a satellite navigator, but we can go off course. We can choose to stop in second. You know how you've got a Satnav, you might choose to just stay on the second stop all your life and never go any further. You might decide to go backwards and go back home, or decide to just go off map completely. But the chart is this wonderful map, this blueprint of what you were born to be. And the energy of that chart is sort of hungry to discover itself. And really the chart reflects that hunger. That's how I think of it. And so we then meet people who remind us of what we want to be and remind us of what we don't want to be. Yeah. And we're constantly meeting that. The example I was given, you would know this from probably, year one, term one, many
yeah.
Is that when you for example, if you've got strong Libra in your chart, maybe sun, moon, or ascendant in Libra, Libra is known as the great diplomat. But where do we need diplomats? We need them in times of war and in places where there's division. So Libra will often find themselves in the middle of a situation or born into parental conflict. or there's conflict between other people, or they go to work and think, oh, this is a great place to work. Second day they're there, they realize everybody's at war. And so in a way, instead of thinking, oh my God, I want a peaceful life, you might say, this is an invitation to become the diplomat, to enhance the skills you were born to discover or rediscover, however you want to see that. And so when you find yourself in a really difficult situation, you think, well, what's the invitation here? What's the lesson here? Yes, you may have behaved in such a way it's led to this, but the choice in that moment of how you process it, I always say it's not the event when we look at forecasting next time. It's not the event, it's how we process it, how we understand it, that is the actual real event for us. It's not the death of somebody, it's how do we respond to that? How do we respond to a divorce or the death of a parent or whatever? What is it telling us about ourselves? And it's not easy being conscious. I'm not suggesting I was aware of any of this when I started out 35 years ago learning astrology. I went through crap relationships. I went into that terrible disease to please, as they call it, all these different things that we do. You know, I'm not suggesting for a moment I was born enlightened by any stretch of the imagination, but I recognize that personal responsibility comes in. And we live in a society at the moment where everything is somebody else's fault. Or there's a reason for it. There's a label for it. I can't do it because then give a label, you know. And with respect to anybody with those labels, you know, they may be genuine, they may be absolutely things that need to be looked after. But the idea of adopting a label, it's a bit like the idea of praying to God. God, please give me that. You know, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? Said Janis Joplin. You know, that. I always think if you're praying for something, you're admitting your inability to get it for yourself.
Ooh.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, that will trigger some people. I understand that. But it's the process. If I ever pray, I pray for, there are two things. I pray during a consultation often. In a moment where there's grief, difficulty, pain with a client, whatever they're sharing with me, I will often say a silent prayer, please allow me to express something that will truly help them. You know, so I'll say a little prayer, it would be just help me direct them in a way that's going to be useful for them, or to say a word that will really resonate. And it's the same praying to God. God, remind me of the strength I have to change my life. Not send me a car, or can I please win the lottery? Remind me of the strength that I have to change my life.
Yes.
So prayer is a reminder, in my opinion. Now, you know, I'm a big fan of everyone having their own opinion, but you know, these days we live in societies of cancellation, anger at the past, anger at all sorts of levels of things, that some of it's justified, some of it isn't. But the idea of getting caught up in that anger instead of being responsible for yourself in that moment is where the problem lies. Yeah. We're thinking of being all revolutionary and we're changing this and we're waking up to that. You're actually part of something that is helping you to continue to sleep on a collective level. Step out of that, zoom out of it, and say, where's my role in this? Instead of, oh yeah, you know, I'm fighting for this. And what is it for? I don't know. I don't care, but it's time. I'm angry at somebody, you know. Or the opposite, I'm angry at Greta Thunberg for what, you know, it's a load of rubbish. All of that is what Liz Green would say, is about being wrapped up in a Uranian moment that's actually incredibly unindividual. It's actually, we all think we're being terribly individual when we're protesting. And yet actually we're abdicating responsibility on a personal level when we get wrapped up in these moments as well. That's another talk, Raf.
I'm so glad that you brought it up. And I think it's really, really important. Personal responsibility actually has a lot to do with everything that we do. And I think a part of what we are meant to do is to remind people of that. It's interesting, just, you know, as a side note, I recently put out a video called 10 Uncomfortable Tarot Truths, things that tarot readers really, you know, that kind of really gets on our goat. And one of the things that I mentioned in that was, you know, yes, we are here to give you guidance, we're here to give you support, and we're here to kind of give you that cosmic signpost, but we can't walk the path for you. You can't put it on and say, well, you told me this was going to happen. Okay, did you go out and do anything to make that happen, to meet it halfway? Well, no. Okay, so like people say this often with relationships, and I say, well, besides the postman and the Amazon delivery guy, if you're not getting out there to date, how is that going to find you? You know, like there's not just the person of your dreams is just going to knock on the door. Very, very rarely happens, you know, if ever. So what you say about personal responsibility, so important. And I really resonate with that idea, that because there's so much of it, and it really, I think, is very divisive by its very nature. And that stuff that you can get pulled into, labels and all, you know, all of it, it's just kind of, it's too much, and it really does pull you off of your path. You are choosing, when you said, like, you know, you're choosing to abdicate your power to give it to something, because it's easier to be wrapped up in and enraged by that than it is to say, well, actually, I have a very clear path of where I want to be going at this moment in time. To go back to something you said earlier, I totally agree with you. I don't buy into the idea of heaven and hell. And maybe I didn't explain it right, but I just wanted to be clear for everybody out there as well. It's not a case of, I don't look at life and think, well, yeah, when you die, you kind of get a score, right? Well, you know what, Raph? You got a 65 out of 100 this time, so you're going back to do it again. It's not so much that. It's more a case of, we're on this journey of continual refinement and perfection of what is already pretty perfect, because it's imperfect. Do you know what I mean? Like accepting that all of you is just great as it is, but you're making it better every time. I'm a big believer in past lives, you know, and all of those ideas. Just, I've had too many weird and wonderful experiences not to. But I just wanted to go back on that and to say, like, I agree with you. It's not so much about passing a test so much as it is about refining all of, you know, what and who you are. To come back to this for a moment, I love astrology for so many reasons, partially because it's helped me understand myself, partially because it's helped me understand the people that I've come into contact with, all of the weird and wonderful, amazing humans that have connected with me, and I know that's how they see me as well. So it's really a wonderful tool and a fantastic medium for understanding the life that you've been given to live, and how you can really squeeze the most out of it. You know, and that includes the challenging stuff, like we were saying earlier with like squares and stuff. Yes, they can be, you know, a real sort of bugbear at the time, but actually I love those moments because they give you that kind of, you know, grit to push past things. Question for you then: what is the most frustrating thing that you see nowadays in the explosion of astrological content that you kind of wish you could change or reframe?
On an ego level, which I try not to
going with the big stuff. I love it.
On an ego level, it's people that, you know, have 2 minutes of experience being lauded as some great new seer or some great new guru, and I think, you know, in England we don't do it much. We don't do that very well. We don't do Jupiter very well. You go to America and everybody's the next best thing. Everything's better than the last one, and you know, America's a very Jupiterian country. I think, you know, born with Sun Jupiter. Yeah, you know, and that's a fabulous way to be in many ways. As an astrologer in England, you keep your head down for 20 years and somebody finally says, oh, I like what you do, or you, whether you need that or not. But I guess one of the things that bugs me is people of little experience rushing into the subject and disturbing or saying things that upset people. Yeah. So, oh, you've got a bad Venus, or you've got this is detrimented, or whatever. And you think, well, how many clients have you actually spoken to? How many lives have you studied? So that's really what gets me down. It's that inexperience, because when you work with clients, you learn so much. A bit like, if you really want to teach, if you want to learn a subject, teach it, because it puts you on your toes. I with the LSA 20 years ago, I've been running it 20 years now. And I was literally, the night before a class or the day of the class, getting everything ready, learning what I needed to learn, and not being afraid to say, I don't know that yet. I'll come back and teach you, or something, at the very beginning. And so it's the destruction or the difficulty that is presented to people who are open to a subject, and then they get astrological bullshit, or they get crap thrown their way of, oh, that's the reason why you've got no money, or that's the reason why your husband left you, or whatever it may be. And I always mention this, but about once a month I get a phone call that I answer at the school, and somebody said, I've just read online that the example I always think of is this woman has just given birth, and she decides to do the child's birth chart online. And I always want to say to people, free content is often content free. So please be careful what you read, And she'd read that Uranus in the 8th house could be death by electricity or electrocution.
Yeah.
Now, as astrologers, we know that Uranus is about electricity, just simply because it's technology and it's excitement and it's spark and energy. And the 8th house is the so-called house of death. It's really the house of regeneration, because we've got a few more houses to go. You don't want to die at the 8th house when you've got the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th to do, So it's symbolic. It's symbolic of something. So she rang up and said, I've got a newborn child, and it says the child could die from electrocution. So I spent a good half an hour trying to almost wanting to shoot the astrologer who wrote that, because it's not helpful, and they don't have to deal with the aftermath of that. They have to deal with the idea that people read it, and sometimes it gets in and niggles at that one area of yourself that isn't good enough. We all have that. We all have that script that says, I'm not really good enough, or I'll never be good enough, or there's always somebody better. We all have that in some area in our lives. And so we might read something about Saturn, or even, a so-called good planet like Venus, and it then ends up being the reason why, or the excuse. Now, I often say to people, the only detriment in astrology is the astrologer's inability to say something effective or helpful about it. That's what's detrimental about astrology. There's nothing inherently detrimental about any placement in your chart. That's the thing to remember. There really isn't. Every position in your chart, whether it's in detriment for whatever somebody's classified as, has a spectrum of possibility.
Yeah.
And it's got all sorts of ways that you can behave with it and work with it and play with it. And then you get transits that trigger it in different ways. And you may end up doing your Venus in Taurus in a very different way, because Uranus comes along and says, try this, go out and live in a field for a while. So how people frame their chart, or how they present that in books and in articles, particularly online where everybody's an expert, is dangerous sometimes. And that's what gets me. So it's the people that haven't worked with the clients, that don't have that experience, who then go on and say things that really can cause some level of devastation in people's lives. Or just remind them of that one niggling doubt that they're not good enough, and that, things never really turn out for me in the end. Things don't really work out well. Oh, that's because I've got Saturn in the 2nd house or something. I'll show you, Richard.
Human thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but I agree with you. It's a very human thing. I've had to say to so many people in tarot readings that I've done, don't throw all of this awesome stuff out because you have this one area that needs work or needs to be overcome. Life is infinite shades of grey. It's not black and white. You're going to experience everything over the course of a lifetime. And, you know, earlier when you said, you know, this about people having sort of, it took me the longest time to be able to start posting astrological content because I just didn't feel like I was at the level of a lot of my peers. And it's like, even now, I still get like a little bit jittery about it. It's like stage fright almost. Because I kind of, in my head, I'm like, well, you're a tarot reader, Raf, you know, and I've been studying astrology now for a while, but it is. And I think as humans, we fixate on that thing that we can't do, don't do as well as somebody else, etc. And if somebody comes along and activates that for you, it can be really, really painful. And we have a tendency, you know, the mind expands everything. The spider that's this big is actually, you know, like this giant thing that's going to murder you, right? Like it expands everything. What I often say to people in terms of the astrology or the tarot readings, all of the stuff that you see online, and especially on YouTube, I love YouTube. It's given me so much, and it's allowed me to give so much to so many other people. Two things. One, if somebody isn't doing client work, that's for me is a little bit of a red flag. I don't care how many hundreds of thousands of subscribers you've got. If you're not, to me, the real work that we do as astrologers, tarot readers, numerologists, palmists, etc., is done right here at the table, one-on-one, whether it's in person, over Zoom, on a phone call. The real work that we do with those mediums is done right here at the table. And I've held true to that thought and that belief from the moment I started reading tarot, and it served me well up until now. So if somebody isn't doing client work or doesn't have any evidence of that, I agree. How could you, the work that you do and the medium that you're using hasn't stood up against what it's supposed to, which is life. The other thing, just to go back on a very small tangent, it's really wonderful when you said about the prayer that you say silently. Whenever I start any of my videos or my client work, I always offer up a small moment of prayer, and it's always with the, you know, whatever the highest vibrational good is, let that come through. So it was, that's something I didn't know about you, and it was really, really nice to hear that, because I was like, ah, cool, all right.
Well, you can get into the moment with a client. Some clients drain you, they exhaust you, that energy there, what they need, and they trigger everything of, I'm not a therapist, or I don't know how to help you, or I'm seeing you for an hour and 15 minutes. I can't change your life. You know, there are things that we have to work with as astrologers, and we learn. And it takes time when you see clients. And you're right, I think it's really important to move from the theoretical of what this should mean symbolically and to what it means in somebody's life. And the more people you see, the more examples you have to share with clients who've got similar placements, to inspire them and to say, look, I've seen this when people do this with it, or they do that with it, you know, give them an opportunity, show them the spectrum of possibility. And yes, client work, I take breaks every now and then. Recently, I took a sabbatical from seeing clients just to clear my head a bit. Because if you get to a point where you're looking at the clock, or you're hoping it will finish soon, you shouldn't be seeing clients for a while. It's a bit like, you know, I grew up around teachers who had no patience. Now, I'm an Aries, and I've actually got a lot of patience when I teach, usually. I mean, there are a couple of students push your button sometimes, you know. I get one of those every 5 years, I think, you know, that you, but generally, I think if I ever got fed up, impatient of explaining, or irritable because somebody doesn't understand what I'm trying to explain, I shouldn't be teaching. It's the same with client work. You need to be giving your very best. It's not about you, but of course it's totally about you and how you experience life and what you can give your client. But it's about them and how you can give yourself to them, what you know about life, how you see the world, but it's still about them. But they've come to you rather than somebody else because you can give them what they need, whether you know it or not. You know, so I often say to students in year 3, be don't be discouraged. You're with that person because you can offer them something that they're with you rather than with somebody else. You know, so there are lots of areas and ideas there with that as well. We could go on forever, couldn't we, with all that?
Yeah. And actually, I really like that because it kind of brings us back to the idea of fate and free will. Somebody has made a choice to come to you as an astrologer or whatever your medium might be, which means that there's something for them to learn from you and something for you to learn from them as well. And even if that's about the way that you do what you do, really, this has been amazing, and I would love to pick your brains for at least another 5 hours, but I'm conscious of the time. So Frank, please tell everybody, where can they find you, what's coming up with the LSA, and when?
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Well, easiest thing to do is to go to londonschoolofastrology.com. You can check out the prospectus, all the different courses that we do. We do one-off courses. I'm doing a course on chart analysis for people who know something about it but want more experience working with it. But there are 3 different years of study with us, or individual bits and pieces. But you can just go to the website, sign up for a free account, download videos and articles, watch different things, a load of free stuff on there as well. And if you're an Instagram person, which I'm sort of trying to be, you can go to Astrologer Frank. I'm doing a new series on YouTube called Astrologer Frank Answers. It used to be called Frank Answers. I did that for another group, and now it's called Astrologer Frank Answers, because I'm trying to be frank. I'm trying to be helpful with what I do. So I've been answering a lot of questions recently. I'm doing that series at the moment for people, so they can send in a question about their chart, and I've been working on that. That keeps me busy. Yes, there's always something that I'm doing. And next year you and I coming together at the Royal Albert Hall, aren't we? So, but we'll tell them more about that another time when we've got the details signed.
Absolutely. I really look forward to it. I was lucky enough to be invited by Frank and the LSA to talk about being an alum of one of the courses there. The next one starts in October, yes?
Yes, you can start anytime, but if you want to be in London and learn with us live, it starts at the end of October. Also, you could just start anytime and do everything online. Recordings, live Zoom, or just watch the recordings of the live Zoom. It's very flexible in that way. So we have people starting almost every day of the year and just tuning live or just watching whenever they can. We have a lot of students now. I run a school, the LSA, in China and in Japan now. And of course, those time zones are crazy in terms of the connect. So a lot of the students there who have joined just watch and go to the student forum, ask questions, and get involved in non-live ways. Yeah, but it's very flexible. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. So this was the first talk, just to kind of open up this 3-part mini series. The next one we're going to be talking about is transits and how to track them. And Frank will be going into some detail on that and what they are and what you need to know about them. That's going to be really, really exciting. Guys, as always, you know where to find me. You can check out the links. We'll put the links actually for Frank in the description box below. So you can check out the London School of Astrology. Trust me, there will be something there for everyone and pretty much for every single level. So you're going to love it. Frank, thank you so much. Again, it's been a huge, huge honor to have my first ever astrology teacher be a part of my YouTube channel. It's been really awesome. I look forward to the next one, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Raf. Take care.